The Insta360 X4 Air is finally back on sale and available for $299. This makes it the most affordable high-quality 8K 360 camera. So it makes sense for us to take another quick look today at how it stacks up against the X5 after all the updates over the past few months. And of course, we'll also discuss who the X4 Air is actually a good fit for, since the X5 is back on sale too and has never been as affordable as it is right now. We'll get to the prices and a very special offer at the end of the video. For anyone who's interested, I've also taken a few comparison shots between the X4 Air and the DJI Osmo 360. But before we look at the comparison shots, let's take a look at the cameras in a direct comparison. Because regardless of image quality, the X4 Air has a few significant advantages over the X5 and the other 360 cameras on the market. It's relatively small and lightweight. The X4 Air is significantly smaller than the X5. It's visibly shorter, and I'd also say it's slightly narrower and thinner. But perhaps the even bigger difference is the weight. At 165 grams, it weighs significantly less than the X5, which weighs 200 grams. The 165 grams are also a reference to the iPhone Air, which also weighs exactly 165 grams. For comparison, the X4 Air is also more than 20 grams lighter than the DJI Osmo 360. And in terms of overall volume, it's also slightly smaller than the competition. Still, in my opinion, the name X4 Air is a bit misleading, because in reality, the X4 Air doesn't have much in common with the X4. It's significantly smaller than the X4 and doesn't have the same sensor as the X4. And there's another extremely important feature that sets the X4 Air apart from the X4. The lens cover is replaceable. So just like with the X5, you don't have to send the camera in for repair if you damage the lens cover. Just like for the X5, there's a lens replacement kit that lets you swap out the lens cover yourself using a tool. This is an important feature that the Osmo 360, for example, doesn't have. But let's take a look at the footage. With a 1/1.8-inch sensor, the X4 Air has a significantly smaller sensor than the X5, and of course than the Osmo 360. Interestingly, however, the X4 Air sensors are significantly larger than those of the GoPro Max 2. There are always discussions about the importance of sensor size. Of course, sensor size is just one of many factors that influence image quality, but it's a very important one. And sensor size isn't just important in low light. It also leads to a better dynamic range, less image noise in the dark areas of the frame, and can result in better colors, since the camera can capture more information. But in my comparison shots, the X4 Air actually holds its own quite well. These are ideal shooting conditions. It's a high-contrast, colorful environment with excellent lighting conditions. Only when we take a closer look, by pausing the clip, do we notice, for example, that the X4 Air shows significantly less detail in the street. It almost looks as if the footage has a certain amount of motion blur. That wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but it's unusual considering how bright it is here. Furthermore, the X5's footage looks more saturated overall and has more vibrant and beautiful colors. The results are similar when compared to the Osmo 360. That said, the X4 Air also takes very good recordings, and there's no denying that the image quality is absolutely sufficient for an entry-level 360 camera. But of course, if you prioritize the best image quality, you should go with the X5 or the Osmo 360. Because when the lighting conditions get more challenging, such as in these shots taken in the high mountains, the X5 clearly stands out. Surprisingly though, the X4 Air actually has a feature that the X5 doesn't. All these shots were taken in 8K, which is what I'd recommend for these cameras, since you'll still need to reframe, essentially crop heavily the footage. And only the X4 Air supports active HDR in 8K. For the HDR mode on the X5, you have to reduce the resolution to 5.7K. That means only the X4 Air lets you shoot in 8K with HDR. This difference is quite surprising, considering that the X5 has 3 chips and the X4 Air has only 1. And of course, the HDR mode visibly protects the highlights better than the standard video mode. However, I've noticed that the shadows on the X4 Air are a bit too dark in HDR. The X4 Air also supports, just like the X5, Adaptive Tone, a high-contrast recording mode in which exposure and contrast are dynamically adjusted in post based on the framing. Adaptive Tone therefore enables a particularly high-contrast look. One criticism of 360 cameras is that the footage sometimes looks a bit flat, since the camera has to find an appropriate exposure for all viewing angles. Adaptive Tone is designed to address this weakness. However, the result can sometimes be a bit too high contrast. Here's a direct comparison with Adaptive Tone enabled on both cameras. Another cool feature is that with the X4 Air, you can enable both Adaptive Tone and HDR simultaneously in 8K. This isn't possible with the X5. While the X4 Air can hold its own against the X5 and the Osmo 360 in good lighting conditions, this is no longer the case in low light. Here, the smaller sensors are clearly noticeable. The X4 Air's footage isn't just darker, it also has more image noise, and the colors are poorer. Unlike the X5, the X4 Air also doesn't have a dedicated low-light recording mode. I think this is also a clear sign, meaning the X4 Air isn't a camera designed for low-light conditions. I mean, if there's enough ambient light, the footage is perfectly usable, but if low-light footage is important to you, and that would include indoor shots, then you should definitely go with the X5. The same applies to slow motion footage. The X5 is capable of shooting in 4K at up to 120 frames per second, and despite a lower resolution, the results are quite good and usable. That's not possible with the X4 Air. The X4 Air can shoot at a maximum of 50 frames per second, and it does so at a resolution of 6K. Apart from that, the X4 Air has almost all the features of the X5. It naturally has a single lens mode that lets you shoot with just one lens, meaning footage you don't have to reframe. It has a Me mode that captures a 360 shot and reframes it right in the camera. This gives you a reframed shot with an invisible selfie stick effect. And it also features the interesting Instaframe mode, a recording mode that captures both a standard clip and a 360 video simultaneously. It's worth noting, however, that the X4 Air's Instaframe mode doesn't include all the functions of the X5's Instaframe mode. Only the X5, for example, has Instaframe 2 and the virtual gimbal mode. With such a small camera, the question of overheating and recording time naturally always comes up, especially when you consider that the X4 Air can shoot in 8K. But I can actually give the all clear on this front. At about 20 degrees here in the office, neither the X4 Air nor the X5 has any issues with overheating. Not even in 8K. The X4 Air can shoot at 8K 30 for 1 hour and 25 minutes, while the X5 can shoot for 1 hour and 36 minutes. And this shouldn't be a deciding factor when choosing between these two cameras. Of course, the X4 Air is compatible with all Insta360 mounts and sticks. There's also an invisible dive case available for both cameras. This is important and also a key difference from the Osmo 360, which still doesn't have an invisible dive case. You might not know this, but without a proper dive case, you can't take 360 shots underwater, only single lens shots. That's why this is a key feature that sets the two Insta360 cameras apart from the competition. One accessory, which as far as I know is only available for the X5 and not the X4 Air, are ND filters, which allows for a slower shutter speed and natural motion blur. And of course, all features of the Insta360 app, whether the desktop app or the mobile app, are compatible with footage from both cameras. The apps also remain one of the strengths of the Insta360 ecosystem compared to the competition. I realized this again while reframing the various shots for this video. As I mentioned right at the beginning, the X4 Air currently costs just $299, but the X5 is also on sale and currently costs just $435. That's the lowest price for the X5 since its release. And not only that, if you use the links in the description, you get a free gift with both cameras. A double lens replacement kit which lets you replace 2 damaged lens covers. But this free accessory is only available through the links in the description. This makes it one of the best deals available for both cameras to date. So which camera would I recommend to you? If image quality is a top priority for you and you don't want to compromise, then I'd definitely go with the X5. In this case, the extra cost is clearly worth it to me. If on the other hand you're not sure whether a 360 camera is the right choice for you and you just want to give one a try, then the X4 Air is an excellent choice and a great way to get started. Of course, this also applies to anyone who's very price sensitive. The X4 Air is a good, small and handy camera. You just need to be aware that it isn't suitable for certain challenging shooting situations, such as low light conditions. You should avoid these situations to prevent disappointment. If you don't want to make that compromise, then you should definitely go for the X5. And of course, there will be new cameras from Insta360. I don't know how long that will take. But one thing is certain, a new model will be more expensive than the current offerings, no matter which camera you choose. The best microphone currently available for a new Insta360 camera is the Mic Pro. If you're interested, the Mic Pro, which features the awesome e-ink display, is currently on sale too. The bundle, which includes 2 transmitters, a receiver and a charging case, has been reduced by $50 and now costs $280. You'll find links to all the products in the description below. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. And give me a like as feedback if you found the video interesting. Of course, there will be more videos about Insta360 cameras. So stay tuned and see you next time.